One concluded to be a financial institution in the 21st century, it needed to be a tech organization. It needed to be tech-based. That was where the competition was going to be. That's what customers were going to expect. So it really transformed the way it does IT. It put in agile development practices. It moved to DevOps mechanisms of continuous integration, continuous deployment. It has a whole new way of doing monitoring and so forth. And the conclusion it drew on that basis was it really needed infrastructure and surrounding services that could move at that same speed. And it was going to really be difficult to try and accomplish that with traditional legacy infrastructure. And that drove it toward adopting cloud computing. And it's that process is in place. It's moving everything into the cloud. In terms of the challenges, you have to really be dedicated to it. In other words, it's not something you can do just a little bit. And you sort of have to then think through what are the applications, what kinds of changes do I need to make. For a company like Capital One, in addition to all of those technical things that it does, it needs to put in its compliance, its risk management, its kinds of controls, because it's an enterprise with those kinds of security requirements, but also it's a regulated financial entity, so it needs to have those kind of mechanisms in place. So it needs to put those there. And pretty much every enterprise will have to figure out what its risk management, its security requirements are, and make sure they can map them into cloud. That's one of the areas you have to do. Typically, when you start to really move toward being a cloud-native organization, you need to start thinking about changing the way you do architecture and the way you do the tooling around those kinds of things, kind of monitoring and management. It's sort of as I said, it's hard to do just a little bit. You have to kind of say, if we really want to go to the logical conclusion of this, what are all the different things we need to change, and what's our program or our plan to do that? Capital One is a very strategy-oriented organization. It really develops a thesis and then says, okay, what falls out of that, and let's go do that. So, it concluded, its strategy conclusion was it needed to be a tech company. There wasn't any algorithm it could run or any analysis that would say, yeah, it will only be a tech company. It developed that thesis and said, what does fall out of that? The same thing with cloud. I think it's very difficult to convincingly develop an ROI that you kind of go, okay, that's completely capable and trustworthy. I don't have any doubt. I mean, a lot of people do that, but I'm not sure you can say it can be just penciled out beforehand. Retrospectively, you can examine it and say, how did that play out? What are the things that we've learned? Are there things we should adjust to change the economics? But I think it's very difficult to prospectively convince, really make a case that you can thoroughly convince yourself, yeah, that's really the case. I mean, you have to sort of say, what do I need to do? And then sort of pursue that in the absence of evidence. I mean, one of the challenges, and I wouldn't say this about Capital One per se, but for many organizations, if you wait until it's crystal clear that you need to do something, by then it's kind of too late to get into it because your other competitors will have gone in there.